Hi folks, Dave, the Honest Audiophile, and this is the Kiwi Ears Division, and these are my Honest Audiophile impressions. I want to thank Kiwi Ears for providing the division for review. To greatly appreciate it. Kiwi Ears, you rock. Alright, so the Kiwi Ears Division, this will set you back $50 from your bank account. It is a closed-back dynamic headphone. It has a 40mm dynamic driver, 32 ohms of impedance, and 98 decibels of sensitivity, and a frequency response range of 20 Hz to 20 kHz. The Kiwi Ears Division comes in this small box. You get a little bit of branding on the front and on the back. Live the music. You got specs on the one side there. Nothing too exciting about that box. And then you get two cables that are provided. You get a short portable cable, which has a inline microphone. It's a single button. Works well. I was able to use it with my Android phone and various dongles, and the microphone is usable and serviceable. The cable is a bit on the janky side. Never really lost the swervy curvies, and it's okay to use. And we're talking about a $50 headphone here. Just wish it was a little bit better quality. And then you get this cable, and kind of like the shorter cable, this 6-foot cable still has a little bit of the swervy curvies, not as bad. It does have a coil section, and then it terminates into a 3.5 with a 1/4 inch adapter that is screwable. No inline microphone connection for this cable. I did find that this cable is a little bit better controlled than the shorter one, and this is the cable that I used the most. Don't mind the cable. Again, I just wish it was a little better controlled. The headphones. So the Division are rather small and very, very light. They're extremely lightweight. I was rather surprised at that. When I picked them up and held them for the first time, I was like, wow, these things are very, very light. But the amazing thing is they don't feel cheap in your hand, even though they are extremely light. You have a metal faceplate here with a little bit of branding on the faceplate. And then you have this nice headband, which is covered with this faux leather type of material. Nice bit of cushioning. You can feel the metal on the inside there. They expand quite nicely. And then you have sliders that expand out. They do swivel so you can lay them flat. And then you have a lot of play within the ear cups moving around. The rods here are plastic. I mean, it is a $50 headphone. It's not the most highest quality of a headphone, but they don't feel cheap considering the price tag. And I have no fear that of them lasting for quite a while if taken care of well. On the inside of the cups, there is a little L and R listed, just in case you need to know which is which. And on the left one, you plug in your headphone cable. Just like so. Put them on and you realize these things are quite comfortable. And clamp force is very lightweight. The headband does a good job of dispersing the weight. And then with the swivel that they have, you're able to get them positioned on your head very nicely. I had no problems whatsoever with comfort. I could wear these for several hours without having any issues. They did get a little bit warm when in a warmer room or a warmer setting, so you had to take a little bit of a break. But for the most part, extremely comfortable, and the lightweightness really does help out in that regard. And very limited clamp force, just enough tension to hold everything on, so if you bob and weave your head, it's not going to go flying off, but it's also not a vice grip on your head. Isolation of outside noises is pretty good. Probably 55-60% of outside noises is being blocked. Things like louder things like coffee grinders and vacuum cleaners and vehicles driving by are muffled. You can still kind of hear it. If you're using them in a monitoring type of setting, you can still hear things that are going on around you and in front of you, but it's still muffled. So if you just pop it off and set it on your ear, you can hear things a little bit better and more clearly. Once the music's flowing, you're kind of in your own little world. So they do a pretty good job of isolation of outside noises. Pads. Now the pads are a little bit on the smaller side. They are a little bit on the thinner side. But overall, I find them to be comfortable. And even with their smaller size, they do fit around my ears. I do wish that they were a little bit bigger, but I don't feel them on my ears, which is I can't stand headphones in which you can feel the pad on my ear. So it's not that small, but they're not really big either. I don't have a whole lot of room. My ears fit just perfectly. And I wish that it was just a little bit wider, so it would be a little bit more perfect. But they do fit in in there and have just enough room. Nice thing is though, those pads are swappable. You can change them out if you want, but I did not do that. I'm reviewing them in stock form with the stock pads, but it is an easy process to take them off and put them back on. So overall, the build of the Kiwi Ears Division is quite nice. For a $50 headphone, it does not feel cheap, and I don't think it looks cheap either. And it has nice comfort and decent isolation of outside noises. And the cable stays nice and connected. It's an okay cable. The 32 ohms of impedance and 98 decibels of sensitivity do make the Kiwi Ears Division a little bit picky when it comes to source pairing. They are able to be driven by dongles, but I did find that dongles that didn't quite have as much power and weren't as strong in driving of headphones struggled with the Kiwi Ears Division. The Division will sound very bloated and very thick and full in the bottom end and not have a lot of clarity and extension into the treble when they aren't driven properly. So using dongles, I recommend something that has quite a bit of output impedance and a lot of drivability and has some good power to it. The Division will reward you if you're using it in that way. Otherwise, it will sound kind of like a bloated, muddy mess. But I used the Division mostly with desktop and also used it on the Allen & Heath QU24 at church. And I found that the Division worked very well in those settings. So if you drive it properly, it will remove some of that muddiness and thickness and just bloatedness in the bottom end and give some clarity in the uppers. So make sure that you're driving it correctly. The Division also prefers products and sources that are more neutral and somewhat analytical leaning, maybe even a little bit cold leaning. Things that have a very robust bottom end, a little bit warmer type of sound signature will also make the Division sound a little bit too full, a little too thick, and just bloated and muddy. So do be careful what you pair the Division with. It is somewhat source picky. I found that on my desktop setups that I preferred it on the FIO K19, the FIO K9 AKM, the X-Duo XA02, and the Mytek Liberty DAC 2. So the Kiwi Ears Division. How's it sound? The bass of the Division is somewhat thick and a little bit on the heavy side. The mid and the upper bass can be slightly sluggish also at times. But overall, I find it to be a fun and engaging bass with decent sub bass presence, about a nice rumble and grumble. The bass adds some rumble and grumble when called upon in the track, and there's a good amount of impact, punch, and slam, especially in the mid bass and in the upper bass. On busier tracks and a little bass heavy tracks, the bass can get a little bit muddled and confused, but for the most part, the bass is a fun and engaging listen. It has decent amount of detail retrieval and resolution, and the tone and timbre is pretty natural sounding. It's a good bass for a $50 headphone, but it's not an exceptionally neutral sounding bass. It's a little bit too emphatic, a little too powerful, and a little bit too dominant to be considered neutral, but it has the ability to give you that tone and timbre, and also is detailed and resolving enough, but yet could have a little bit better control, as it can get a little bit uh, too rumbly and grumbly and fun factory. The mids. The mid range of the Kiwi Ears Division is somewhat overshadowed by the bass. Not terribly overshadowed, but it can at times sound just a little bit behind the bass, depending on what source and what track you're listening to. The mids are a little bit more forward in the upper mid range than they are in the lowers, and it, even with that kind of more forwardness and slightly behindness of the lower mids, it doesn't really sound uneven. It does have a good amount of balance. At times you can get that little bit more forwardness and unevenness, but for the most part it's fairly cohesive and balanced sounding. I find that the mids have a little bit of a warmth to them and a little bit of a lushness to them, and there's enough air and space for the mids to sound energetic and to sound natural and accurate, but they are a little bit on the warmer side of things. And then going into the treble extends very nicely, and there is a good amount of air and space up top, nice sparkle and energy throughout, and there's a good amount of edge, bite, and crispness as well. And the treble is fairly well controlled, and it does a good job of keeping things moving without sounding stuffy or boring, or being too aggressive and too intense either. So the bass, the mids, and the treble do a good job of working together and being cohesively sounding. It's not the most neutral of presentations, especially with that bass being a little bit too emphatic and a little too full sounding, and the mids having a nice lushness and a warmth to them with decent clarity, and then the treble adding in a little bit of zip with the energy and the sparkle, a little bit of bite, edge, and crispness. Soundstage of the Kiwi Ears Division is quite good for a closeback headphone, especially a $50 closeback headphone. I was rather impressed that it doesn't sound cramped, and it does a good job of portraying different sizes of venues, small, medium, and large. Now, you're not going to get that big grand size of things, and it's not this huge wide open space. You are talking about a closeback headphone here, and there are limitations, but within those limitations it does a good job with its imaging, and it tracks things across the stage well. From side to side you can place things, whether it's on stage left or on your right side, or stage right and left side, or which ways it's moving. If they swap, go in and behind and in front of each other, you can track things. It's not the most precise and accurate. It's more, it's over in this neighborhood, it's over in this neighborhood, and it's not this intense laser focused type of imaging, but it's going to give you enough of imaging to tell you if it's on this side or that side, in the middle, moving around. And also it does a good job with its layering, and it doesn't really get confused for the most part, except for on those bass heavy and really complex tracks will it show a little bit of muddled confusion. Detail retrieval is really good. I was rather impressed for $50 how much details I got from the Kiwi Ears Division. It was quite impressive. Nothing seems to be left out. Now, you're not going to go out there and explore all kinds of brand new details in your music, but it's not going to make you go, where is it? I don't hear anything. It does a good job with its detail retrieval. Resolution of those details is also quite good, especially for a $50 headphone. I found that the details are refined, defined, and focused and do a good job in that regard. And then in regards to the tone and the timbre of the Division, I found that the Kiwi Ears Division is quite natural sounding and quite accurate. It reproduces instruments very well. Also reproduces vocals quite well. It is a little bit on the warm side, especially in the bottom end, and it is a little bit on the thicker side. As mentioned before, it's not a neutral headphone, so to speak, but it does a good job of reproducing tone and timbre. So I really do like the Kiwi Ears Division, and I'm quite impressed. For a $50 closeback headphone, it is quite impressive. Now, the Kiwi Ears Division is $50, and I don't really have a headphone that's technically a stage monitor or a DJ monitoring type of headphone for that price tag. I've heard some in that price range, but I don't have any currently in office to compare it to. Two headphones that I use quite often for monitoring, one of them being my daily, is the Austrian Audiophile X60, but that is a $400 headphone. The other one being the Rode NTH 100, and that one comes in roughly about $150 or so. So neither one of them are at the same price point as the Division. But to just give a couple thoughts regarding them, the Rode NTH 100 has a similarish, a little bit on the warm side of presentation, just like the Division, but it has a little bit more clarity, a little bit more air and presentation in the mids, and it has a little bit more of an openness. It's also a little bit more cohesive in that regard. It's not quite as overshadowed by the bass. The bass is not near as full and as thick sounding on the Rode NTH 100 as it is on the Division. Soundstage wise, the Rode NTH 100 also has a little bit more precise accuracy, and it is a little bit more right there, right there, right there. And the layering is a little bit on the better side as well. The NTH 100 has slightly better note weight, a little bit better tone and timbre as well. It sounds a little bit more natural because it's not quite as thick and as robust sounding as the Division. And then the Austrian Audiophile X60. The Austrian Audiophile X60 is very neutral sounding, and it has a little bit thinner of a note weight, and it is way better detailed and resolving, and it is a more accurate stage monitor, and that's the reason why it's my daily. It's not a fair comparison to the Division, as it's 8 times the cost. Kiwi Ears Division. For $50, it's a very solid performer that is doable for stage monitoring. I personally would use it more as an all-arounder type of headphone instead of a stage monitor because of that bass bloat, and it isn't the most technical of headphone. I find that the Kiwi Ears Division is good enough, but it's not my preference. I personally would prefer the Austrian Audiophile X60, and that is the reason why that is my daily stage monitor. But for the price, the Kiwi Ears Division is capable as long as the user understands the limitations that and that you're going to have to compensate a little bit for it. You're going to have to apply some EQ and some adjustments and be aware of how it's going to affect things, and make sure that you're checking your levels. You know, if you're using them and you're tweaking things, pop that one pad off and listen and make sure everything sounds proper. So Kiwi Ears Division. Yeah, I like this. $50, quite impressive. It's been Dave, the Honest Audiophile. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Speaking of next video, somewhere on screen, subscription links, notification bells. If you haven't already, please check those off. Don't forget to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the video, and check out all the links down below. There's all kinds of information down there regarding how you can contact channel, follow channel, support channel. Speaking of supporting channel, there's various ways that you can do that through one-time gifts with PayPal or Venmo and YouTube, or through monthly subscriptions with Patreon and YouTube memberships. I really do appreciate everything that is given to the channel. All of you that have provided, whether it be a one-time gift or monthly subscription, much appreciated. By subscribing to monthly subscriptions, you can get access to videos early and other benefits, like certain benefits on my Discord server, which is public and open to anybody. And if you give one-time gifts, greatly appreciate it. Is much appreciated. Speaking of my Discord server, if you're interested in joining that, please check out the link down below. It is open to the public. Also listed down below, there's all kinds of other information regarding how you can check and follow the channel. And there's links to gear recommendations, music recommendations, gear rankings, and all sorts of things listed down below. So don't forget to check out all the links down below. And lastly, don't forget to enjoy the music, and that honesty is the best policy.